Greetings, everybody. This is Serpentine451 here, and it's just me for another episode of Weeb Warriors this week. I'm starting it a bit early. I have 6 shows for you this week, and these are the shows we're going to be reviewing for sure for fall 2018. So since Jordan had other obligations, he will not be joining me this week. And the shows that we will be covering are Ulysses, Joan d'Arc and the Alchemist Knight, Goblin Slayer, of course, That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, A Certain Magical Index Season 3, and Zombieland Saga. These are the shows we are reviewing for sure for this season. So let's start with the shows that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, that being That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Goblin Slayer, and Zombieland Saga. I'll start with Zombieland Saga because that's the one that I remember the most. So essentially, episodes 2 and 3 are more of the dynamics of the idol group being formed. Since episode 1, the other girls retain their consciousness except for Tai-chan, because Tai-chan is Tai-chan, she's just legendary. So episode 2 mostly focuses on more of a hip-hop style of music, where you get to see Saki and Sakura do a rap battle for one of their live shows, which is brilliant rap. And a good friend of ours, Mr. J, or my buddy Jay, we know him as Mr. J's Reviews, when I showed him this clip of this particular episode, with this song, he loved it, as someone who loves hip-hop music himself. Well, overall, episode 2, it brought about the dynamic of the group itself, trying to figure out all the different personalities. We have the 2 actual idols of the group, Ai and Junko, who are the Heisei and Showa idols, respectively, and they feel out of place amongst a group of misfits. So they try to escape with Sakura, and then the 3 of them get accosted by 3 wannabe rap artists in Japan. And then you have a cop, who is another pivotal character to this series, who gets pretty much scared by every living thing that exists when it comes to the zombie girls. Anyway, but the performance was great. We get to see Tai-chan be Tai-chan, just meandering about like an actual zombie, having her head removed in episode 2 during their performance. Now on to episode 3, where they actually have the name of the group now, and Saki is chosen as not the center of the group, but the leader of the group. And so the group's name is Franjutsu, and they actually have their guerrilla live in the front of a station, where at first they were kind of filling Saki, Lily, who is the legendary childhood prodigy idol, Yurigiri, who is a courtesan from the Meiji period, and of course Tai-chan and Sakura. They performed their best on their own without our 2 resident idols of the group, who actually came in at the end of towards the end of the performance to kind of boost the spirits of poor Sakura. Now, with this episode, it was great, and for someone who tells me that he's not a big fan of idols, he thinks, well, Jay, he's not a big fan of idol shows. He really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed this episode. And it's great comedy. And I'm sure Jordan, if you were here, he would tell me what he enjoyed about the episodes themselves. But since it's just me, I'm going to cut the reviews short here for Zombieland Saga. It's a great series. I highly recommend people check it out. It's really funny. And plus, the music is actually really good. Now, let's go to That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. And episodes 1 and 2, we have the ending of the small arc with the direwolves and the goblins, which is this 2-part arc where our Rimuru, our slime guy, after assimilating his now brother, I guess, because I don't know the gender of this particular dragon. They share the surname of Tempest, swallows the guy up in order to figure out how to break the seal that's on top of him. And Rimuru runs into a horde of goblins who are being besieged by direwolves. So essentially, within the episodes, in episode 2, we have the plot with the goblins and how their champion, who is actually named, who is a big badass, died to these direwolves, and they're scared shitless. And then into episode 3, we have the end result of that fight, and all of the goblins getting named, and one direwolf being named, being the direwolf Raga, who is now a Tempest Wolf. Because he is connected to his master, which is now Rimuru, after Rimuru killed his father. And in this world, names have power. If a regular monster that doesn't have a name is given a name, they essentially evolve into a much bigger monster. All the goblins that have been named become hobgoblins, and the female goblins that get named become goblinas, which is some crazy nonsense, and they filled out just fine. God damn. And then Raga becomes a Tempest Wolf, and the other direwolves essentially become Tempest Wolves too, which is fucking nutty. And when he, like, wags his tail so fast, he actually can cause winds. And in order to, like, gain clothing and armor and all this great stuff, Rimuru decides to join up with has the goblins, a few goblins, and himself and a few direwolves travel to the world of the dwarves to basically barter for things. So in episode 4, which I will watch right after this episode of Weeb Warriors, I will find out what happens at that point in time. But overall, this is actually a very surprisingly good show. Even though I wasn't a big fan of the premise, I found it was kind of nutty. But I ended up warming up to it. What can I say? Now, I will save Goblin Slayer for last because it's actually the topic of the Otaku Soapbox topic this week. And I will get into that after my review of Goblin Slayer. So, now let's move on to the shows that were added in due to interesting theming circumstances. So, we have Ulysses, Jeanne d'Arc, and The Alchemist Knight. This is set in France during the 100 Years' War, where Joan of Arc, or Jeanne d'Arc, would have been in action, well, the start of her career as a saint. But episode 1 mostly starts with Momorachi and his circle of friends becoming, well, sharing a promise together to always be there for each other as best friends. And then when Rizumon gets sent off to battle and is ultimately lost due to, in Momorachi's head, he uses alchemy to try to save her. But over time, he runs into a fairy named Astaroth, who basically tools him under the skills of alchemy, and it took 7 years to actually compile a good portion of his training to make an elixir. And the story just takes off from there. And then that's just episode 1 in general. Episode 2, we just follow through with Joan of Arc, or Joan. We see her as a innocent peasant girl who has a connection with fairies and prays to the fairies to end the war. Well, prays with the fairies to end the war, sorry. But the one thing we can focus on here is that she wants a bigger chest when she's praying to pretty much anyone that wants to listen to her. And it's really funny that when Momoransi and Astaroth come in to perform their own alchemy, she thought it would be a way to actually make her chest grow bigger. But no. But also we have the episode where the English army comes into her village, kills all the fairies that were her friends, and then ultimately kills her. And then through the power of the Philosopher's Stone and through some other nutty bullshit, Momoransi saves Jeanne and she becomes the Ulysses and has Ulysses power, which is where we get the title of our show from. And so when Astaroth explains it's the power of a king or so, I can't really remember episode 2 all that much. But what I can say is that she was surprised that Montmorency didn't become the Ulysses like she intended. Instead, Johnny becomes Ulysses and just wrecks the English army that's in her way. And then episode 3 takes place where we meet up with Charlotte, who is one of the friends of Montmorency. And we also run into his stepbrother, La Tresimont. With that, he decides to kidnap Astaroth and pretty much imprison Montmorency and Regimont, where we learn Regimont became after losing to the British, she became a knight for the English, and after one sexual assault, decides to defect and goes back to France, but is branded a traitor regardless and thrown in the dungeon. But overall, this show is actually really good and really decent. So that's always the fun part about adding a new show into this particular series, where we get to talk about some of the more interesting things. And then I'm still going to continue watching the show. I found it very interesting and very engaging. It's a fun bit of historical fiction. Now we move on to A Certain Magical Index Season 3. And Season 3's first 3 episodes consist of Kamijo going to France to Avignon, where the papacy once took place during a time during the Catholic Church where there's a whole bunch of nuttiness going around and a bunch of pope fights where they were supposed, he and another character whose name escapes me, but their mission was supposed to retrieve the document of Charlemagne, which is this powerful object that can basically claim the lands of the papacy and make it seem legitimate, if I'm remembering right. And before they got to this moment in time, they are met with someone who is someone by the name of Tara of the Left, who is part of the organization of the Right Seat of God. And what's great about the first episode of the season, if you haven't seen A Certain Magical Index in a long time, or you haven't seen it at all, the first episode has a little bit of flashbacks to give you a refresher, which is most deserved in some situations. But overall, I thought this was a great introduction arc to a really good series, which I will give people a lot of credit for. I enjoy these character dynamics with everyone involved, and I cannot wait to see how this season in particular goes forward. So give me one moment here to go to the next show, which is Bunny Senpai. No, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Senpai, which is essentially a show, more or less a drama. So, the thing that we have to look forward to here is this. We have one individual with scars who is looking to find a cure for a thing called adolescent syndrome, which is a weird phenomena that is connected to adolescence. Because his kid sister Kaide was inflicted with it and was given nothing but grievous wounds onto her body. Well, and it looked like she was bullied, and then at some point in time, he was scarred as well. But what's important to this particular situation is that the first few episodes of this series are dedicated to the titular bunny girl senpai, her name being May. She is suffering from a symptom of the adolescent syndrome, where it's mostly affecting her, well, her perception to the world amongst others. And so in the first or second episode, I believe, I think it was the first, she wore the bunny suit because nobody else could see her, because people don't acknowledge her existence, because to them, she doesn't exist. So the first 3 episodes were essentially this arc where he falls in love with May and tries to help her with this particular problem. In the 3rd episode, he ultimately forgets who she was after he fell asleep, because the one thing that was correlating to her vanishing from people's minds is the fact that they go to sleep, like regular people do. And when people do that, they don't remember her at all. And he forgot about her. But it took a great emotional trigger to actually bring back his memories of her. And with that, he announces to the entire student body that he was in love with her, and that from that point forward, they're going to try to figure these situations out from this point forward. Because instead of Schrodinger's cat, which was the theme of the greater portion of these episodes, we have also the Laplace demon, which will be in episode 4. So I'm really looking forward to what scientific terms they're going to be playing with in this series to kind of connect it to adolescent syndrome. And I'm also very curious to see what else we could see through all these characters. What other problems is our protagonist going to solve, who has a very dry wit and just humor to him, which I really enjoy. And then next up, and finally, we'll go into Goblin Slayer. So episodes 2 and 3 are primarily focused, 2 is primarily focused on the titular character himself, and episode 3 is where we meet other companions that were introduced at the tail end of episode 2. So episode 2 is more or less looking into the backstory of our titular character, where he was a child in a village who had an older sister who was killed and raped by goblins. And he goes on this murderous vendetta against all goblins. Because of that, what happened to his village? So he stays on a farm, for the most part, if he's not slaying goblins, where he meets a childhood friend of his, or he is taken care of, essentially, by a childhood friend of his and his uncle. And this is also where we get to see more of the interactions between the priestess and Goblin Slayer in episode 2. And then episode 3, where we meet the elf, the lizard man, and the dwarf, where they ask Goblin Slayer, since he's a silver placard adventurer, to help them in aiding in defeating the demon horde that's coming towards them. But all in his mind, he wants to eradicate the goblins. So the lizardman, who is the more balanced of the group of the 3 adventurers calling on Goblin Slayer for their aid, he basically says, we know where some goblin nests are, and he's like, and Goblin Slayer's like, show me where they are, we're going to eradicate them. Then I might help you, essentially. And the priestess felt a bit insecure in the situation because he didn't want her to join in with the negotiation with the 3 other adventurers. So she is in the lobby of the Adventurers Guild, where 2 porcelain class adventurers try to have her join their party, on top of a witch who basically disclosed a little bit of the unhinged nature of her compatriot, of the priestess's compatriot, that being Goblin Slayer, and how the witch gave Goblin Slayer the knowledge of one of the scrolls that he needed help with. And then they go on their merry way to fight off the goblins in the location that the lizardman mentioned, and they're like, what's going to happen in the next couple of episodes in this particular arc, which I am really looking forward to seeing animated because that's like pure nonsense and craziness, which is great. But let's get to the Otaku Soapbox question, because Goblin Slayer is a great show, and it's meant for a certain kind of audience, and that audience should be very mature. However, a week ago, there was this big controversy about Goblin Slayer's first episode where it wasn't given this, it needs to be, it needs to have viewer discretion advised or whatnot. And a lot of people in the anime community got into a big tizzy about it. Now, those who actually know the manga know it's a seinen manga. It's an adult manga with adult themes. You don't expect somebody to really think stupidly in that regard. So, it's like people trying to blame the object, but not the people for their own actions. Like, people are fast to, well, this is the only comparison I'm going to make. So I don't care if you guys don't like it, and I don't care if you guys think that my opinion is awful, because you have your right to your own opinion, and I have my own right to mine. And what I'm going to say is that for those blaming Goblin Slayer not having a parental advisory thing, knowing some of the details and letting children watch it, you're a fucking moron. No offense or buts about it. You're a fucking moron. And you didn't pay attention. You didn't do enough research. You thought, oh, it's not going to be that graphic. Oh, fuck yeah, it's going to be graphic. And this is why I cannot tolerate stupid in this world. Because, sure, plain devil's advocate, should episode 1 have had a parental advisory thing? Yes. It would have been more beneficial for these slack-jawed idiots to not watch a show about rape and murder, especially when you're seeing goblins destroying people and people destroying goblins, for that matter. That's not like the goblins' lives don't matter, so. But it's like blaming weapons and not the people using that weapon. Like, we blame guns for killing people, but we should also blame the people for killing people with said weapon. It's the person, not the object. So you don't blame the show, you blame the idiots watching the show without knowing anything. And that's mostly my frustration. People are so quick to create controversies that shouldn't even exist, and yet they want to play these nonsense games and just try to have people backtrack so fast, so goddamn hard, that it's so aggravating to see such a great show be marred by a reputation that it didn't even deserve. And I'm sorry if that got a bit too vocal, but hey, that's just my honest opinion here, guys. This is a show where I've mentioned this before. Jordan has mentioned this before. Even Jay, when he was, during the summer when he was on the show, and during the My Hero Academia review for episode 20, well, for the first half of episode 20. We are guys that are very loose with our lips when it comes to the things we feel about certain things. And with this particular situation, I'm mostly offended by the people who were offended by something that, to me, is very inconsequential, because I know better. I'm an adult. And I make decisions as an adult, for the most part. So, if you choose to do something stupid, you either own up for your actions and place blame on yourself for being an idiot. And if you do the opposite and blame the thing that made you into an idiot, you're still a fucking idiot. Anyway, that's the Otaku Soapbox. My whole thoughts on the controversy: it's stupid. It's ridiculous. And people want to take the other side and try to scream, oh, it's just horrible that they didn't do this thing. Shut the fuck up, you useless sons of bitches. You just want to cause controversy that doesn't even exist. So I will defend one of the greatest shows that I've ever, well, greatest shows this season, because it is a great show. I think it is. Jordan thinks it is. It's like Megalobox back in winter. I will defend it. And I will make sure that people understand my stance on this whole stupidity. And with that, I will end Weeb Warriors here. So, the best way I can explain this to get away from the flames that I just spewed from my mouth here, I'm going to include something a little bit extra. Of course, I may post reviews and other videos tomorrow if I get the chance to. But I will let you know in a little bit of a social media announcement. You can actually now follow me on Instagram. And with this, I am going to have you guys look at my Instagram. It's mostly focusing on my cosplay because I'm going to a convention this weekend, which is KomoriCon up in Portland, in my home state of Oregon, which I am living in now, as the sole Oregonian amongst my circle of friends online here. And this convention is great. I love doing this sort of thing. It's my bread and butter. It's something I enjoy. And I cannot wait to go to this convention. It's something that I needed just to have fun with. So I'll catch you guys later. This has been Serpentine451. You can comment down on the comment section below. And if you have any opinions on the shows for this week, or if you want to know anything more about what's going on with the shows or my Instagram, just follow me there. This has been Serpentine451 saying, catch you guys next time.